Hello, varsity volleyball players and families. Welcome to the Buckeyefire Tryouts. Wanted to put together a video for you. My name's Grant Roberts, and I am from Buckeyefire, the club director. And I wanted to put together a quick video for you guys. It probably won't be real quick. You're looking at probably about 45 minutes. To help you through the tryout process, tell you a little bit about us, and kind of tell you what's different between us and maybe some other clubs throughout the Ohio Valley region. I did the same video for the younger kids, the 13 and 14-year-olds, but theirs was much more about the process. And you guys are old veterans, you've been through this before, but as you know, for a 13 and 14-year-old, it could be pretty overwhelming. I mean, all of a sudden there's contracts and it's like an NFL thing, and if they say yes, they can't get out of it. And these are all things they don't understand, and they're very overwhelmed. A lot of times they don't even know what they're getting into. My assumption is you guys have been through all this. You've been to the tryouts. You know most of it. And I really want to focus more on some things I'm pretty passionate about. For many years, I've wanted to communicate and help to educate the volleyball community here at the Ohio Valley region. And when I write it down or I throw something up on Facebook, sometimes, it just comes off as sour grapes if another club director doesn't turn it into sour grapes. And that's not the idea. The idea is if you care about the kids and you have the integrity and you truly want to do the best thing for the kids, I also want them to be educated about everything and some of the things that happen and some of the things to look out for as they go through this tryout process. That makes the assumption that most of the people watching this probably don't have contracts because they have to sign. Or they have to try out. So if they're not signed, then they have to go through this process. And that's still not an easy process. I don't care if you're 18 years old. Trying out sucks. So to do that, I want to take you through it real quick. And I hope that you find this helpful and honest and sincere, because that's exactly what it is. So without further ado, let me get started here and take you through. What I hope to accomplish today is a quick introduction to us. I want you to meet the coaches at the varsity level, and we call varsity anybody eligible to make varsity in high school, because that's what you're developing is a varsity volleyball player for their high school. That would be ages 15, 9th grade, through senior 18. So I want you to meet those coaches at that level. I want to go through the registration stuff, some of the technical stuff. I want you to know how we build our teams, because it is different from other clubs. I want you to know what to expect at our tryouts and what happens after the tryout and how we handle the whole offer process. And then some of the things that you really need to make consideration, not need to, but I'm hoping you will take into consideration before you make your choice this season. And maybe it's a change for you from last season, and maybe it's not. But if you find it helpful, I hope it is. We start out by telling you a little bit about Buckeyefire. We're probably one of the oldest clubs in the OVR. We were established in 2005, and we were established on one thing. That's when John, Dave, and myself started coaching our own kids. They started at the 13-year-old level, 7th grade. We didn't know anything about the OVR, and of course a lot's changed since then. But we did know that we wanted our kids to have a good atmosphere to play in, and simply started with a couple of teams, and we took it from there. We've grown substantially, but not too fast, because for all of us, Dave, John, and myself, this is not our business. This is not our primary business. It is not our primary source of income. This is something we love to do. It's secondary to our real jobs or the real company or the other company that I own, and it's something that's completely separate. So we tend to not treat it as a business, but you have to understand volleyball is a business. We built everything on a positive family philosophy. That was what was really important, and that's what's kept us small. Small is manageable. It's easy for me to relate closely to all my players and my families, even across 12 teams, than it would be for a club to try to do that with 60 teams. It doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. It's just nearly impossible to do that. I enjoy where we're at. The other thing is, when we grew the club, we didn't add a team until we had a great coach. So my biggest thing is, you have one bad coach, you have one bad experience, or a coach you can't trust. That's it for your club. And more important, that's it for those kids and their experience for that year, which means they may not play the next year. If they don't play the next year, we haven't done our jobs. They need to love the game, and I think that's most important. So one by one, we found some great coaches with the same positive attitude, and puts our entire club on the same page, and that's kind of who we are. We're based on the Buckeyefire name, of course, Buckeye being Ohio, and We don't believe in the red, black, blue, number one team, number two team. We try to avoid all that as we were putting the club together. So the way that we do it is we give every team kind of a unique fire name. Crossfire, Red Fire, Surefire, Spitfire, Sparkfire. Every team's got a name that includes fire. This is a name that goes with the coach. So as the coach grows with the team and stays with the team, they continue to be Crossfire, Crossfire, Crossfire. And then when that coach gets you through 18 and steps back and maybe coaches 13, 14, or 15 again, then he'll take that Crossfire name because those kids will be finished with it. It's something that works good, and it's produced some pretty cool uniforms too. Our uniforms are neat. Most of us know us by our black with the flames on it. That's our identity uniform. And then as you can see in the picture down here, these uniforms are our secondary uniform, or used to be the libero uniform, but now everybody's got two complete uniforms. And we will have a little bit of a different version of this, a spin-off of this, but this will be our second jersey. Kids love our jerseys. They're all supplemented jerseys, so there's no peeling or vinyl numbers or anything like that. And every jersey has a name on it, not our name on the back, Buckeyefire or no name. We're proud of you guys, and we want people to know who you are. Your last name is on every single jersey. So you know who runs the club and what we all do. There's three of us to run this little club, and that's been really helpful too. Myself, I'm kind of the architect in the way that we put together the club. Definitely hard on the philosophy. We put the philosophy together, and hard on building and communicating and talking about that within the staff and coaches continually, because the philosophy is something, if I'm sitting here in a video or I'm on a stage or in a meeting or writing something down, if I make that promise, we all need to keep that promise. So that positive family atmosphere is really important to me, and all the coaches are on board. I do make a lot of the decisions when it's based on the kids and things that we might need or we should change, although that we vote on everything between the three of us. Any major changes, we bring it up, we take a vote, and we're all 1/3 as far as making the major decisions. I do the promotion for the club, like the videos and things like this. I handle the technology, the websites, the communications, things like that, a lot of the coordination. And I coach because I love coaching. Coaching is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. So once I get done with all the club director stuff, I can't wait to take the floor with the 10 kids I have on my team, because that's what means the most. If you think about when we were established, a lot of the kids I coached way back then, they're now approaching 30, some with kids. And it's fun. It's fun because I still keep up with them. That's what this is all about, I think, for all three of us. I also have to make the tough calls. We have a complete club manual that's very detailed. It outlines rules. It outlines social media rules. It outlines everything that could cause drama in the season, and we go over that with all our players. If somebody begins to violate that and it hurts 9 other kids on the team, we have to remove that. We have to remove it, and we have. I can name several occasions we've had to do that. Because we're never going to risk the whole club or the other 9 players' experience based on one bad apple. It's just not going to ever happen. And most people have been through this club or have seen that happen. No, I will not hesitate. We have to make the right calls here. And next to me is one of my best friends in the world, and John Smolani. I've known John since we were coaching back then. Just super guy. We're right on line with my same philosophy as is Dave. He handles the systems, and what he does for us is he kind of coordinates all the coaches. So when the coaches need to talk about equipment or gym time or change of practice time, or maybe they have a challenge, they have a question about, they'll go to John with all of that. And if it's something that needs Dave and my involvement, then John will come to us and we'll talk about it and get back with the coaches. But John does a great job because he just has a great personality where all the coaches love dealing with him. So he handles all that, the facilities and things like that. John also was the coach of our number one ranked 16s team last year. So pretty proud of John. He also loves coaching. Dave doesn't have time to coach. Dave does all the logistical stuff, the finances, the ordering, the contracts, the compliance, the hotels, make sure that all the tournaments are booked. Everybody's got the right a number of tournaments, that they're all paid for. The checks have gone out for all that. Puts together all the spirit wear and the design of that spirit wear and gets it distributed. He actually, if you go to his house, he's got his entire living room, kitchen, and dining room floor is full of spirit wear, which we hope to always get out before Christmas. And people coming to his house to pick this stuff up and Dave telling me how exciting it is to meet everybody. This guy gives up his house and loves that people come to his house to get their spirit wear. That's the kind of thing that goes on here, and I just think it's really cool, and it's a lot of work for Dave. Most important, what Dave does is he's real proactive on all the big tournaments. So at your age, at the varsity group level, we go to the MEQ, we go out to Indy, we send teams to Philly, we send teams to Kentucky, we'll send teams to Pittsburgh. Those all come with hotel rooms. Well, Dave's got them booked already. So those hotel rooms, you're in like the best block of hotel rooms. We're almost always connected to the convention centers. If we're not, we're right next to it. At Buckeyefire, you're not going to stay 30 minutes away from a venue when you're out of town. We've got that all handled, and we'll get you the links when the time's right so you can convert all those rooms into your own name. But Dave is awesome at making sure that we're, number one, in the tournaments and entered on time, but also that everybody's got the best hotel rooms to take advantage of. So 15s through 18s coaches, I cannot be more proud of my coaching staff and the way that it came together, and the fact that when we get an experienced coach, they stay here. They really do. And that just makes it easier because year after year after year, people are just used to the way we do things, and they're on board with the same philosophy, and things makes it a lot smoother for me. But let's go through these real quick. At the 15-year-old level, it's pretty amazing the coaching level you're going to have at 15 American. Terry Spilker is rapid fire. It's one of our 15 American teams. Terry has coached at the national level at both CBC and Maverick years ago. I used to have to play Terry, and when I played Terry, Terry beat me. So there's the whole, actually most of these coaches did at one point or another, and there's the whole thing, hey, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Well, that's what's happened, and I think, as is the case with all the coaches, Terry came over looking for the culture that we have here, the family atmosphere, the less political atmosphere. And Terry's been here for a long time now, and he just does a super job with the kids. He's very much on the mental side of the game. The kids really focus on all that and life building skills, and I love everything that Terry does, and you guys are lucky to have him as a coach. Terry is the head varsity coach of Lakewood High School and is building that program right now, so that's a big program. Then there's Tim Vasco, our head coach right here in Nordonia's varsity. Tim's taken Nordonia last year deep into the state playoffs. This year he just won sectionals last night, so that was pretty cool. Tim came to us from Ignite, actually, where he coached at the national level as a head high school coach. And then I can't imagine you're going to find a better coach at 15 years old than these two coaches. I mean, it's absolutely incredible, the ability that we have at 15. If that should put you through 15, 16, 17, and then 18, that's pretty nice to know you got 4 years of coaches like that. Connie Perney is at our 16s, Spitfire. And Connie is going to, she is the middle school, coordinates the middle school volleyball program and coaches the 8th grade team. I believe just the 8th grade, but she might coach both 7th and 8th grade. Connie's been here forever. Not only has Connie been here, but she's put all 3 daughters through the program. And Alexis now, her oldest, has gotten through Ohio State, played club ball there, got her degrees in exercise science, and then now she's coaching. She's coaching our 14s team, which is a JV level team. But you'll love Connie. Not only that, but Connie has a rare certification and a Cap 1 certification. You're not going to find that in many coaches at all that take the time to get that. And Connie's a past player who's great with kids. Great coach for you guys. Bill Smurga. Bill and Betsy coach together at the 16 level for Dragonfire. I don't think there's coaches that know volleyball more than Bill and Betsy. Both have been in the volleyball world forever. Betsy, of course, was the coach at Maple Heights for what seems to be 100 years. Now, a little funny story for you. Betsy was my gym teacher when I went to school there. So that gives you an idea how long she's been doing this. Bill, just as long. Bill was head coach at Streetsboro for a long time. And both of them, if you see them, you're going to recognize them if you've been in the volleyball community because they've been around so long. Both have coached at the national level. Both have done a great job. They've been with multiple clubs, a lot of big clubs. And I think that Bill and Betsy also came here for a good culture and a more relaxed, less political atmosphere. And they have a lot of great ideas they brought with them, a lot that we listen to, and we love having those two on board. They do so much with the kids. It's amazing. Bill had built his team since he started it all the way up to last year where he finished 10th in the OVR. It's pretty incredible. There's a lot of teams at the 16-year-old level. Then there's John Smolani, my partner in crime, my brother from another mother. John's teams just always seem to win, and these kids just play their hearts out for him. He's been doing it so long, there's no need for me to even give you any super experience for John, other than he is the head JV coach this year at Nordonia High School. He's been with Nordonia for 3 or 4 years now, working under Tim. And John just does a super job. I don't know anybody who's ever played for John that doesn't love John. His Crossfire team, again, was #1 in the OVR last year. That's pretty cool. And then there's me. I just love coaching. I don't coach in high school because it's absolutely physically impossible. People don't realize club directors don't have an off season. By the time your season ends at the end of May, I have to make sure that all the early contracts come in from the coaches. Those all get out. That all gets signed. We complete that all at the end of July. I might get a couple of weeks off in August, and we're looking at booking tournaments and setting up the following season, replacing a coach if we need to, and things like that. So there's just no time for me. Although John, myself, and Dave, and I believe Tim at one point too, are all certified referees. So to get my volleyball fix in the high school season, I'll just line judge or referee a game now and then. Hopefully I didn't make any bad calls for any of you guys. Then there's Brian McKnight. Brian's got our 18s this year, Retro Fire, and I don't know what I have to say about Brian. The guy is just volleyball knowledge top to bottom. He seems to win wherever he goes. He's the head varsity coach, again, at CVCA. Kids love playing for Brian, and it's just a super enthusiasm in this guy that you're just not going to find anywhere else. There's something, and same thing, Brian came over to us, and he has coached at the national level, and definitely he's won the OVR before, as John, overall at the championship, not only finished ranked #1, but won the championship prior. And you're not going to get a better coach than this. And the one thing I'm going to say about all our coaches, if you come to our open gyms or if you come to our tryouts, here's what I can promise you. First thing you're going to notice, time you walk in the door, the first person you see at the table or whatever the process that's going on is going to be smiling, and they're laughing, and it's not fake. And when you walk around our gyms, what you're going to see is the coaches light up when they get those kids in the gym. We just had our first open gym for the young kids, and everybody just seems to be so darn excited when they get there, and it's a real excitement. It's like we're happy to see each other. We're happy to see kids again. We all love coaching. You're going to notice that, and all these guys, and Connie, have the exact same thing. They're just excited about coaching, and I know you'll feel it. I've been written this a million times. It's just going to be different as soon as you walk in the door. Best coaches, in my mind, in the OVR, best staff anywhere. Just real quick, our facilities. People ask where we practice. Well, we practice mostly out of the Nordonia schools. These facilities are all top-notch. They're taken care of. The equipment's always workable, safe, and new. Every one of these buildings have cameras in it, go 24 hours. The parking lots are always lit up. There's cameras in the parking lots. You can't ask for a safer place to play than in a school facility. Our relationship with Nordonia has been awesome, and it has been all the way back since 2005, and never at any point were we denied the gym time we need to raise kids through volleyball. And of course, it's helped the Nordonia program. Our facilities primarily are Northfield Elementary in Nordonia, Lee Eaton on Ledge Road, Nordonia Middle School, Nordonia High School, the Madison YMCA, who renovated their facility for us to get 2 full courts in there, and they do a great job for us. And then, of course, we have the connection with CVCA, where not only their high school gym, but now just an amazing field house, and we'll practice and scrimmage there as well. So I want to give you some process cautions about tryouts, and I think these are important. So this is where I'm going to kind of start my little roll on what older kids really maybe didn't think about before, but maybe you'll think about it when I'm done. Volleyball's a business. Everybody likes to think of volleyball and coaches, but it is a business, and it's a business for a reason. These clubs, the bigger clubs, they have facilities, they have leases, they have utility payments, they have a decent payroll with the amount of coaches they have. I mean, there's no way it cannot be a business. It has to be profitable to a degree. That kind of work is not done for a break-even venture. But it will tell you, as much as it's a business, most coaches that coach volleyball love coaching. If you break it down, I promise you, even us, who we pay our coaches more than most clubs do, even us, our coaches make about 20 cents an hour when you look at all the time that they put in. So from that perspective, that's where you get that feeling, and don't think about it being a business. But it is a business, and that makes a difference in some of the decisions and the way things are handled. And you need to know that, because if it's a business, we're selling you something. And if we're selling you something, you're the customer. And if you're the customer, then you have the right to ask questions, demand integrity, and make sure that everything's in writing. And I'm going to get to that later, but that's why I tell you it's a business. I want you to understand that there's fake deadlines. We go through this every year. A club or a coach or a club director will say to a kid, look, I'm going to offer you this contract. And if I offer you this contract, I need an answer in 3 days because we're ordering uniforms. I heard that one and started laughing. Or I'm ordering, or if I don't get that, I'm going to ask another kid. None of that's legal. You can't do that. And I'll show you later, but there's a signing deadline for everybody. That signing deadline is the same. No club can set their own deadline, period. If they offer you an offer, they cannot take it back. You can wait the time to make your decision. That said, we'll get into that a little bit more later. Want you to know that at your age, you already know this because it happens with the younger kids more, but it's nice to play with your friends, but don't make your buddy the reason why you didn't sign for the club you really wanted to play for, because you're following her to another club because you both got an offer there. I warn against that because of this. Here's what I know over all the years that I've been doing this. The best part about JO volleyball is the friends you make. Not the friends you come in with, the new friends you make. There's only 3 kids from one school on a team by OHSAA policy. So for that reason, what I love is I'm seeing kids on my phone just recently texting kids from a couple of years ago, teams, and they're all, oh my God, I miss you. And these are kids that didn't know each other when they came here, and they are close now, and they still talk and they still communicate. My daughter still talks to people from her team, way back when, 100 years ago. It's not the priority in the moment that you think it might be. You're going to make friends. The status tag, I call that the national status tag, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but we're in a different place in the OVR right now. When I first started, there were no American teams. So you were either regional, which was everybody, or you were on one of the 20 top national teams. The teams that their whole goal would be to qualify and go beat people from other states. These are the kids born 6'2" to play volleyball, the kids that go to Penn State or Ohio State, the true D1 players. Low percentage, right? Like 5% maybe of the 15,000 kids that play volleyball in the OVR. However, it's changed, right? We added American to give that a little upper level of challenge, and then national still maintained. But what's happening now is there's just national cost a lot more. So there's a lot more national teams. When a kid gets a national offer, it may not be in their best interest for a multitude of reasons we can talk about, but they like that. They were called national, and then they take it. And I've had this happen so many times. Then they come back to us the next year because they never played, because the national roster had 15 kids on it, and it cost so much, and they didn't realize they were going to be traveling every weekend, and their parents are paying for meals and hotels. And truly, all along, they were a kid that thought they might want to play in college, maybe not, or they're driven to play in college, and all along wanted to play in a D2 or a D3 college or a small D1. You don't have to pay national to do those things, because even as a top American team, you can play the same schedule a national team does. You can get the exact same exposure that a national team does. And many times you're going to play that national team as an American team when you're out of town, because the same team that's national turns around and enters their national team in the same division you're in, which is American. Happens all the time. So really just kind of think through that. Do I really need that status? Does it mean that much? Because about a week after tryouts, you won't care. But if you do, and that's how you're driven, and you absolutely are one of those national players, you should go play national. I'm not anti-national. I just think that national is watered down a little bit at this point. And there's kids playing national that don't need to play national and pay that kind of money. Available spots and the waiting list game. That's important to know. Now, I'm going to be very transparent with you this year. For the past 16 years on our website, we've done exactly what the OVR asked us to do. We have listed our teams. We have put the names of our players that are already signed under early contract on those teams. And in quick order other than I think one other club. Nobody does it. Nobody does it. So what's happened to us over the years is people look and say, hey, they only have 12 teams, and that team only needs 5 kids, and that team only needs 6 kids. I don't know if there's enough opportunity there, so we'll go try out for the club that has 60 teams because they have more opportunities. Never thinking for a second that a club with 60 teams has to sign everybody. Everybody pretty much is going to get an offer because you have to fill the teams. It's a business to pay the bills, right? If they tried out here, they had a great chance to make that team. We're looking for a different thing. We're looking for maybe a different kind of player, and they might have been a better fit, but they don't come because they don't think the opportunity is there. This will be the first year I'm not listing the names. I am not. You're going to see 1 through 10 open, and on tryout day, you'll see it be populated. The other thing I won't do is I won't list names when we make the offer. I'll do what everybody else in the OBR does this year. And I'm not saying that I like it. I'm saying when in Rome, I don't know what else to do. I can't be the only one with that kind of integrity. So we'll list the number, your tryout number, and I hate doing that because we're against numbers anyway. But this is going to help us. It's going to help us get more kids in the gym. It's going to help us to give a fair evaluation of that. And we do have a lot of available spots. And I'm going to tell any parent or player, if you want to know exactly what we need, just write me an email. Not only will I tell you how many spots are open, I'll tell you if there's a need for your position on those teams, because older teams do start to build. For instance, our number 1 team from last year, it doesn't need many players, right? They won the number 1, they brought back those players, but there's a number 2 17s team that I'm going to coach, and I absolutely positively intend to get the best players I possibly can. I intend to compete with John because I am competitive. I intend to build a winner out of that. If I can get you in tryouts and you can meet us, we will put together a winning team. Number 1 team doesn't matter, and I'll show you why in a minute. Using a national signing deadline is the newest game. I think that what clubs are offered by the Ohio Valley region is if you're offering somebody a national contract, you're telling them they're going to be on a national team, their deadline's a lot shorter. So they have to sign like a week earlier than everybody else in the OVR. What we saw happen was they would bring in everybody for tryouts. They would say it's going to be a national team. They would tell them they had the national offer, and then they turn around and the team ended up being American. So ultimately what they're trying to do is lock you up as a player before you try out somewhere else. It's not right. It's not fair. Nobody's going to stop them. So what I'm telling you is get your offer in writing, because if you accept it, the only way out of that offer is if they wrote down that you were going to be a national player and then you found out it wasn't a national team. That would give you a right to get out of that contract. So if you don't get it in writing that that's the level you're going to play for, you're going to be stuck. So that's what I mean by the national signing game that goes on. Deadline game's simple. You can see right here, right? This is right out of the Bill of Rights. And right here are your signing dates. So for 15 through 18, we can try out as early as November 14th. Nationals have to sign by November 17th. You have 3 days, right? Now, what club director wouldn't want all their kids to decide in 3 days? Don't get fooled. Make sure you get it in writing that it's going to be national. And then everybody else has to be signed by the 24th. You can wait to the 24th, or if you know where you want to go ahead and answer, because it hurts the development of a team and it hurts the kids on the waiting list when you don't answer and you drag it out. That's your deadline. Get your offers in writing, like I said. Not only that, I would tell you right now that in writing, you should be told what team you're going to be on, what level, and who the coach is. And I'm telling you that at our age, if you don't know who your coach is going to be, why are you signing for that team? I would not sign for a team if I didn't know who my coach was going to be. Do they have experience? Have they coached before? Do you have one hired yet? Those are really, really important questions. You're making quite an investment. Also, don't just sign an offer because you've got an offer. If it doesn't say I'm going to be on American, or specifically which American team, that means when you say yes, if it doesn't say it, you can end up on a regional team. They can put you anywhere that they want if you don't ask for it in writing. The other trick is they give it to you verbally and tell you that there's a deadline. And because it's not in writing, you turn around and say, I have so much time. They say, I never give you an offer. So remember what I said, it's a business. Get everything in writing. You're the customer. We're trying to sell something to you. If your parents went to buy a couch, they would ask for a contract in writing so they weren't delivered a chair. It's no different in volleyball. And a lot of club directors won't like me saying that, but that is what it is. Make them commit to you, like I said, on the team and the level of play. Demand to know who the coach is. Remember, an answer is an answer once you give it in writing. That means even though there's a long contract and terms and conditions and financial contracts that come later, if they make you an offer and you pick this phone up and you text, I accept your offer, that's it, we're done. The OVR is not going to let you leave that club. They are not going to let you go to another team. That is an in writing answer. Now, if you know that's where you want to be and you know that's what your answer wants to be and you have all your questions answered, by all means, answer right away. I always tell our kids, no is okay. And the reason it's okay is I can move on. There's a kid on the waiting list who really wants to be at Buckeyefire. And the longer you take to answer, the more nervous she gets because another club is pushing her that they need an answer. Then we end up losing the kid that really wanted to play here on the waiting list too, if you're kind of hanging out. So if you know where you want to be and there's no legitimate reason why you're waiting or you want to try out one other place or something, I get all that. You should have that right. Otherwise, no's okay. And yes is even better, especially if it comes quicker because we know where to move from there. So the contract game is pretty simple. I mean, there's early offers from your club. We've already done that. You've been through that process. You either have a contract or you don't. You accept it, you're with that club, you can't get out of it. Those are offers that are extended to your own club. Now in our club, you know which team, unless you've gotten a club offer, which we're really honest with you. We tell you we're not sure which team yet, so we're looking at the team needs. And there's not many of those, but there are some. But we're honest about it, we tell you. Otherwise, everybody else gets a contract that what team, who their coach is, everything ahead of time. Because our coaches are actually under contract the same way our players are. That's rare in the OVR as well, so I can promise you a coach. Early offer contracts from other clubs. Okay, this is where it gets sketchy. And at this point now, we're late in the season. So this is where the unfortunate part of not listing names or telling you how many spots are open, I think is horrible. Early offer contracts from another thing are legal verbally. So I can say to you, hey, we want to sign you. I'm going to give you a contract. Okay. But the OVR will not recognize the contract. So this is what that means. If you've been offered verbally and you've accepted from another club and tryouts haven't happened yet, come tryout time, you can back out of that and your club can back out of that. So it's a danger to both of you. The OVR doesn't protect either one of you in that instance. So while they say, yeah, you can go ahead and tell a kid you want to sign them, but we're not going to honor the contract until after the first day of tryouts. So if I see somebody that is better than you and go, oops, I shouldn't ask that girl in the summertime, I don't have to honor it anyway. I'll take the better kid that showed up for tryouts. I can't stand it, but it happens. And I think that it's important for you to understand that you're not obligated, but also that they're not obligated if they've offered from another club. Once tryouts occur, then everything is official. The OVR will back up all of those contracts. The open gym tryout game, right? You've all gone to open gyms and you know darn well that you're being looked at for next year's team. Here's a disadvantage to that. Those open gyms and clinics that happen in the summer especially, right? That is when the larger clubs build their national and their top American teams. So if you think that you're leaving my tryout and going to another tryout to make their number 1, number 2, or number 3 American team, I can tell you right now that it's probably unlikely. Those spots have been filled in those open gyms and clinics when they're telling people, hey, we want you to be in the team. They're doing that verbal, legal offer to those kids, even though it's not binding. My problem with that whole thing is it's not listed on the website, so you know that, right? So you leave my tryout because maybe I'm saying I want you on the second American team, and you're going over there assuming you might make the first, second, or third American team. You find out you're not. You're on their fourth or fifth American team, whatever it is. But these are things you have to know. It happens. Really, a lot of your opportunity is taken up in those clinics and stuff. Now, I will tell you, we did clinics this summer and did not offer one single person in those clinics a contract. I don't believe in it. I don't believe it's real, and I don't believe it should be allowed. We may tell a kid, hey, we'd love for you to play here. Please come try out. But at tryouts, everybody has the same opportunity. They still have to win the tryout. So take from that what you will. National Elite American, like I said, is almost always filled from those clinics and those camps. In the end of the day, as you go through all the processes, it's important to recognize integrity issues. If you see an integrity issue, you think you've been lied to, you think that a club tried to offer you an offer but wouldn't put something in writing, you need to know that, and you need to pay attention to that. If they did that before they got your money, what do you think they're going to do after you can't leave? Integrity has got to be the number one thing. Now listen, I'm not saying clubs don't make mistakes. I'm not saying we don't make mistakes. I'm not saying I never regretted a decision. That's silly. Okay, I think most of us all want to do the right thing, that are in the OVR, that are coaching, that are club directors. But I am saying, if you recognize a true integrity issue, ask yourself if you want to go ahead and continue and play for that club. I think it's important. Ask yourself if the club, you're trying to communicate with the club and they're not responding, you're asking for something in writing and they're not giving it to you. If they won't do that when they're trying to get your business, what are they going to do once they have it and you're locked in and can't get out? I think that's important. As far as registration and things like that, you guys have been through it a million times already because you're 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you can accomplish almost everything across the two sites, either our site or a club's website or the OVR site. But you're going to need to register with the OVR so you have a membership. You're going to need to read the Bill of Rights and all the stuff that they ask you to read. It's important, and a lot of that I just talked about. And if you didn't know some of the stuff I just said before, then it's because you didn't read the paperwork or the paperwork was confusing to you. It's all there. It's all in writing. OVR tryouts and role processes are out there, and defining your ages, it's more important 15 to 18 at the varsity level. At the younger level, we don't care so much because we're not trying to qualify with those teams. We're trying to build teams that can qualify at 15, 16, 17, and 18. But at that point, yes, we're going to play out of town. So in simple terms, the deadline's the same for the OVR with your birthday and the USAB. The only difference is the OVR gives you a waiver. That waiver allows you to play at your grade level. So for instance, if you're an old 10th grader, and really your age says you should be playing at 11th grade or 17s, but you're in 10th grade, you can play 16s. That doesn't hurt anything as long as you're not going to a qualifier. They don't honor that waiver. All the tournaments in the OVR are fine, but if that team intends to go to Indianapolis or Philadelphia, then these USAV qualifiers, they wouldn't be able to play with the team. They would either have to move up to another team for that tournament or not be able to play at all. So present your age, present your desire to play down if you want to play down, and see if that team's going to actually qualify. If they play select at these events, then they get the waiver. If they're playing mostly JVA or AAU events, the waiver's there. You can still play grade level, but it plays into teams that want to qualify. So national, it wouldn't even be a consideration. Why would you consider that? You're trying to qualify. That's your job for that kind of money. Top American team, same thing. If they're going there to try to win the American division at a qualifier, then they're going to want kids that make the age deadline, not the grade deadline. Registration with Buckeyefire, please register on our website. We need to know who's coming. And not only that, in the day of COVID, we absolutely positively need a contact tracing list. Our tryouts are $20. You pay for them right on the website, and you do pay in advance. That is going to be non-refundable because we'll hold the spot for you. Medical release forms, you should print them and have them with you. We do collect them, but if you were to tell me you're going to keep it for the next tryout, I'm okay with that, but I have to see it. I have to know that if something happens to you, you have a medical release form that I can access. So you should have those for all your tryouts, not just ours. You do have to have a membership. The OVR site, you're going to spend most of your time here under this juniors tab. Almost everything you want to see is there. And if you want, click through them all because there's interesting stuff that they don't know. Like, you don't consider yourself a club director, but go to club director and then go to registration package. And in there is about 19 different documents with all those rules we just talked about. If you want to know more about the OVR, what the rules are, what your rights are, that's where you find all that stuff. And it's all here. It's not hidden. So tournaments and all that stuff is there. It's all going to be on your junior tab. On our website, you're going to spend the tryout tab right here. That'll take you to your registration. That'll take you to tryout details. That'll take you to tryout information. Probably this video, or no, the document center will have the all the OVR stuff, documents. We keep them on our site too, and our videos. But tryouts, this is where you'll find the results and stuff like that. And here, these tabs show on the website, but they don't show on the mobile phone, so you need to access them up here. But here would be your 15 tryouts, and if you want to register for our open gym. Our open gyms don't cost anything. Do know you can't go to an open gym anywhere if your varsity team is still in the state tournament. If you're still rostered on an active OHSAA team, do not go to an open gym. You won't get me in trouble as a club director. You will get your eligibility in trouble if somebody reports it. So you should not go to an open gym if you're still active with your high school team. That includes JV players that are just brought up to sit on the bench during. You're still rostered. You cannot go to an open gym. Once tryouts are complete, coaches all get together after that. Right after your tryouts, usually at the end of the day, we all get together. We buy all the coaches a meal because it's usually a long day. We sit down, we start building teams. We start talking about positions, where the best spot is for you, things like that. And as we build those teams, we come to a conclusion of which kids we're going to offer first and who's going to be on the waiting list. The next thing that happens is the selected players are called directly by our coach, not me. You're going to hear from your coach. Your coaches pick their own team. This is not a club where me as a club director tells them who they have to coach. Collectively, they pick the team and we help them with our opinions and what we saw, but they will pick your team. Therefore, they call you because they're excited to have you. You will get a call directly from your coach. That'll be followed up then with a digital offer, probably the next day. By the time we get through that process, sometimes it's 11:30 at night. So the next day I will sit down and send the offers out of the computer that are digital. You can answer that right away with just a text. You don't have to wait for the digital copy. But I am the one telling you to get everything in writing. If you feel like you want to wait, and just wait the next day and you will get that official offer. It will tell you which team, which level. There will be nothing hidden in our offers. It's all there. Decision time, we talked about that. We talked about your rights. Again, I'm going to tell you no is okay. I would prefer that you answer quickly, but I'm not going to make you answer quickly. In the OVR, we're not even supposed to call you after we make the offer. I can't say you're not going to get one phone call saying, hey, any questions. There are clubs that are going to pressure you constantly every day. That's not even legal. So, I mean, you can report that to the OVR if you wanted to. I know it happens. But your rights are, you get time to think about it. But if you know, go ahead and make the call. Get your offer. Ignore the made up deadlines, just as I said. And there's a lot of it. Think about all the important considerations that we talked about. And ask the important questions of any club, but ask them to email them. If you email me, you're getting an answer back in writing. That's your answer. It's right there in writing. You might need it. You won't need it here, but I'm telling you, you might need it. Ask the questions and get them in writing for sure. How and when to accept, like I said, if you know, go ahead and make it. Go ahead and make it. And a quick decline's fine too. There's games. There's a lot of games out there. You know, one of the games out there for sure is the waiting list game. So sometimes you got a kid, they know it's on the waiting list, and I have another kid that's waiting, right? So she's not answering me because the club she's actually already accepted said, don't answer them yet. Because that way it drags my waiting list out and they might get a kid off my waiting list too. This stuff all happens. Well, that's not really fair. And the player that they're asking not to answer us yet, even though they know you're going to another club or you're going to their club, that's an integrity issue. So we go right back to what I said. I hate that I even have to talk about this stuff, but it absolutely does happen. Just answer and tell the other club no. If you know and have accepted, call the other club right away so they can go right to their waiting list and grab the kid that really wants to be here. It's fair to everybody. Now, how we build teams are a little bit different than most clubs, even at the varsity level. There will be no spark teams at the varsity level because the way that we do things, we want to slowly build teams into top winning teams at 15, 16, 17, and 18. These are developing teams, probably still American. I don't think we have any regional teams. and haven't for a while. And then the next level for us, at least, is the fire teams. The fire teams are teams that are starting to bring back players. They're building a base. They have a pretty good team moving up. They're in the top 24 to 30. Those fire teams are on their way to building a great team. And that could be the number 1 team or the number 2 team. It doesn't matter the way that they build. And then once you've gotten to that point, like John's team, when you only need 1 or 2 more players, we consider that an explosion team. Explosion team has the option to go ahead and play national if they'd like, or play American at the top level, knowing that when we go out of town and go to the qualifiers, we're still going to play at the national level. Matter of fact, my 18s last year, both of us never played in any regional tournaments. All we played were U tournaments. So even though we weren't a national team, we played a complete national schedule. What happens if we register as American is it leaves you open. It leaves us open to play more tournaments. It leaves us open with a lot of leeway of where to play and how to play. We're not just locked into those 20 or 30 national teams and playing them all the time. So most of the time we're going to be real high level American at that point. Now, when we go to pick our teams, I told you the coaches pick their teams, right? If you're an explosion team and you're only 1 or 2 players away, you get whatever player out of tryouts you need to complete that team. If you are an explosion team, we now want to win the OBR. You're that close, and we want to make sure that we give you every possible chance to do that. If you're an explosion team, you've been building this team at 14, 15, 16 the right way. Your players are staying. They're on board. You have your key positions. That's in our manual, in our coach's manual. And we're going to give you what you need to push it over the top. The fire teams will continue to build. What's beautiful about that, and that's why we really don't have a number 1 or a number 2 team. At that point, the fire team probably has 4 or 5 kids that are also in their base. The explosion team only needs 2. So you take the whole tryout. There's 30 kids at tryout, 40 kids at tryouts, and the explosion team is going to get there too. But the fire team all of a sudden gets everybody else in tryouts. That's how our teams end up closing the gap. They end up being very close, and they're both great teams. They both will beat most clubs' number 1 team, and that's important to understand, and I'll show you that and prove that out. But the fire team isn't slighted. Now, does it always work? No, sometimes we'll lose a player, and sometimes the fire team catches up a little bit slower than we'd like, but it's not because we don't care about it. This year, we have a little bit of a lot of openings at my 17s team that I'm going to coach. Now, I can tell you that most years I've never finished under 16, and I could prove that out too. My intention is still to build a team that can win and actually compete with the explosion team. I just need you to come to tryouts. We'll make that team happen. That team is never slighted. Often I'll coach the number 2 team instead of the number 1 team, which we don't call them number 1 or 2 because I believe I can win, and I do, and we do, and we end up finishing both at the top. That's how we build teams. We do not take all the kids, put them on one good team and not care about the other team and just let it, that's okay. That's just money. That just pays the bills. Remember, it's not a business for me. It's not a moneymaker. For me, I want to give both teams a chance. One will always rank higher than the other. One is always going to come in higher than the other, but we continue to do this until we're both up there. That's the whole idea. And sometimes it doesn't happen until 16 or 17. And sometimes people don't believe it's going to happen and they try another club. And then they come back at 18. So we'll take it from there. Here's an example of what I'm saying. And this is just one example from last year. Number 2 is not really number 2. It might be, the lower ranked team in our club at the same age, because we have 2 teams at every age, might consider it number 2. We don't. So last year at the 17 American, which is in my mind one of the toughest divisions there is, we had our first team, which wasn't the number 1 team to start the season. So that's just an example of what I'm saying. Finished 16th. They're in the top 16. They're going to play for gold, silver, and the championship. That's the goal of our top teams. We like to get even higher. But, I think what's more important in this story is here's our number 1 team, and this is right out of the rankings, right, which is 16. But then here's our other team. Our other 17 American team was 24th. Those aren't bad numbers. And let me explain why there's no deficit there. First of all, look close at us at 16 and 24, right? One does rank higher than the other. So in your own mind, you can take that as, oh my gosh, we're not the number 1 team. But at Buckeyefire, if you feel that way, I don't know why. Other than maybe we had a rough year. I can see why that happens in some teams, but it's not our goal. It's not what we want to do. But who ranks lower than you if you're on Buckeyefire's second team? So in this case, when the second team was ranked 24th, 39 American teams at 17, and there's less as you get older. So there's a lot more American teams when you're at 15 and 16. I mean, a lot more. But there were 39 American teams ranked lower than our 24th team. American. There were 101 regional teams that would be below the 39 American teams. So just look at that. That's 140 teams. If you were on my number 2 teams, there's 140 teams ranked lower than you. Most important, I want you to look real close at this when you look at it and tell me who's ranked above us. And you know what? You go ahead and take a look. You tell me what clubs you see missing above us. Because some of those clubs offer 3 elite American teams, 4 elite American teams, 5 elite American teams. So you may not take my offer to be on this number, our second American team, because you wanted to be on the other club's number 1 or number 2 American team. But look close. They don't have any of their 5 American teams above us. Does that make sense? That's when number 2 isn't really number 2. You jumped from an opportunity to play for a great American team with one of the best coaches in the OVR to move to another club because they called you number 1 or number 2. And it just doesn't work that way. And I think if you think about that carefully, that you'll understand what I'm talking about. Connect that with what I said earlier. If you went to the summer camps and everything else, their number 1, number 2 team is already full. And guess what? They're still not here. Just look. You can see it. I'm not saying none of them. There's great clubs. Ignite's a great club. Southwest is a great club. We expect those clubs to be up here because they kind of do business the way we do. But you know what? Some of the super big clubs, they're just not above my number 2 team. But you went there because they called you number 1 or they called you number 2. So that's not sour grapes. It does drive me a little bit crazy because we're really giving you such good coaching and such great people. This happens often. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but guys, look at the history here. We started with just 3 teams, actually 2 teams, and then went to 3. In 2013, we only had 5 teams. We grew from that point. We've had as many as 12. Most years we have 11 teams. A lot of that depends on how many 18s teams we have. 2013, our 17s were 7th, our 16s were 18, our 12s were 16. Just look at some of these years. In 2014, 17s were 8th and 14. 2 teams, 8th and 14. 15s were 14th. That same year, our 13s were 7th. And in 13s, there's probably 150 American teams. 2015, 2016. This is consistently. Look at 2016. 18s finished 5th. 17s finished 12th. Our 15s, we had a 4th and a 9th place finish. I mean, that's pretty amazing at 15 American. There's probably 120, 130, 140 American teams. 4th and 9th out of this little club. And it does happen often. 2017, 18s finished 2nd. 17s finished 4th. Some of these, again, where you see both teams. 17s, 6th and 14th, right? 18s here. How about 3rd and 12th? How about our 16s at 5th and our 15s at 7th? That's in 1 year only of 12 teams. 2021, this is just last year, 1st and 5th. Our 18s were 1st and 5th. Now, I had that 5th team. Do you think I ever felt like a number 2 team in the OVR? No, sir. Matter of fact, we beat our 1 team, and they beat the crap out of us at other times. We support each other. We don't. There is no 1 or 2. That is when you have 2 number 1 teams. If I finish 5th and my other 18s finish 1st, there's only 3 teams between us, or 4 teams between us. 2nd, 3rd, no, 3, 4th. How many clubs are there? There's not too many teams that beat my number 2 team. Number 17, 17s finished 16th and 24th, as you saw. 16s finished 1st last year. 15s finished 10th. I mean, it's proof positive that great coaching, a great system, a positive philosophy, and not calling teams 1 and 2, building the way that we build, overall it does work. Nothing's 100%, but overall it does work. 2021 was pretty much a down year because of COVID. At 15 in the Ohio Valley region had 106 American teams. 161 regional teams. There were 267 teams. That's around 2,670 players. Our 15s finished 10th. Our other 15s, they might have finished, I can't remember for sure because I didn't look it up, but they might have finished even 40th. Guys, 267 teams. It's not a bad thing. You're getting great coaching here. Just in 2001, there it is. I call them number one because in the OVR, to be averaged as a number one team, you have to play in 3 tournaments. They waived it last year because of COVID. Black Swamp only played in 2. Pretty easy to go to 2 big tournaments if you're a good team, and that's it. Boom. You get enough points. There's no breaking that ranking. These guys played in 7 tournaments. Both my 18s teams played in 7 tournaments. That's a lot of tournament days, 14, 15 tournament days. So that's why I say 1st and 5th. There's a Crossfire. If you didn't believe me, number 1. We already talked about the 17s and how they finished. Dragonfire, number 10. So proud of all those things. I'm going to go over pricing with you real quick. Showed you how we built teams. That's how we price teams. A Spark level team, $1,400. A Fire level team is $1,575, and an Explosive team is $1,675. This is all schedule driven. The only reason you're paying more money here is because you're going to play in more tournaments. Typically, we're 13 to 15 days for that $1,675. Look close at that. A tournament is not how many days you're going to play. You could play in 7 tournaments, but if they're all 2-day tournaments, you play 14 days. Everything in the OVR is pretty much based on tournament days. How many times do you get to go to a tournament? So it's 13 to 15 days for them, 11 to 13 days for 11 to 13 days for the Fire teams, and 9 to 11 days. Think about this. Our lowest level teams at least play 11 tournament days. 11 tournament days. Look closely. A club might be promising you an extra half hour or hour of practice a week, but they're not playing nearly that. Some are only playing 6 and 7 tournament days. As far as what you get 2 great uniforms like I showed you. You get an awesome high quality warm-up jacket. We don't buy spandex. Bottom line is, and I did this from the very beginning, I don't think that a male club director should be picking your spandex. If I did, you're all getting 6-inch spandex. You're probably not going to like me very much. So the spandex, you're on your own to spend that $15. All we ask is that it's black. You do get 2 practice t-shirts. And most important, I don't care what level you're at, you're all getting the same thing. We don't say, hey, the elite team gets double duffel bags and 3 more uniforms. We just don't do it. Everybody's treated the same. I think it falls in the same line with the same philosophy. I'm telling you that nobody's inferior. When you buy a team, when you get offered and accept, you buy an open spot. You're not buying playing time. You're not buying happiness. You buy a spot. So again, being a business, right? We all need to fill so many spots to pay the bills. And when you say yes, you have bought that spot. When you buy that spot, we can't give it to anybody else. Once tryouts is over, there's no finding somebody to take that spot if you quit. So you could quit literally a month after the season starts because you don't like volleyball or whatever the reason is. You still have to pay for the season. What you bought was bought in the very beginning when you took the empty spot that was available. I hope that everybody understands that. And I hope I'm putting that in a way that sounds nicer than maybe another club would argue with you about. But I'm telling you why. Once you committed to that spot. COVID refunds. This one really hits me because we did refund the year that we were canceled for COVID. And that year caused so much distrust in the OVR. And I'm sorry that it had to even be a part of that. Understand how we did our refunds. The club, Dave, will write checks for everybody's tournaments all year. And we'll have all those checks out and everything's paid for. When the season got canceled, all those tournaments we paid for were refunded to us. And I can tell you, without waiver, that almost every single tournament was refunded to every single club. I believe there was only one tournament director that went out of business and didn't give refunds. One director. Everybody else refunded. Well, you know what? That has nothing to do with my cost. That is money I put out there so you could play in tournaments. That is money we didn't play in the tournaments that you should get back. We refunded that. I understand that some clubs have their own facility. They still have a lease and things that they have to pay for, but it has nothing to do with that tournament money. Did your coaches get paid for the whole year? I doubt it. So if we didn't pay our coaches for the whole year, let's say we paid them for 2/3 of the year, we took what was left there and we put that in the pool of refunds. Anything that we got back, we put in the pool of refunds for our parents. Then what we did is we looked at who was in which tournaments. When the season got canceled, some kids only played in 2 tournaments. Some already got 5 tournaments in. So naturally, the ones who played in 2 tournaments, by percentage, we gave them more of the refund money. The ones who played in 5 got less of the refund money because they were lucky. They got almost a whole season in. So that's how we did it. It was fair. I don't know of anybody who complained at Buckeyefire, and I think it was appreciated. What we could have done is said, hey, I'll credit that to you next year. That's not fair. I'm trapping kids in my club that way. I would not want to do that. That to me was leveraging what I already owe them and making them come back. I wouldn't do it. And I'll tell you, it did hurt me because the clubs that did that created a situation where those kids couldn't try out last year. And tryout numbers were way down last year. And that's because they were going back to the club that in order to get their refund. Not going to get emotional about it. You should get your refund. And I want you to know that we did it. Practices first tournament time. This is really important to me because we do practice 2 solid. The explosion teams usually get a 3rd practice, but we do practice 2 solid 2-hour practices. Now I know some clubs will promise you a practice on a Saturday or a Sunday. We're playing in tournaments, so we don't do that. We don't practice on the weekends. I would rather have a kid in an all-day tournament than at a 1 hour or 1.5 hour practice. I see that some of the practices it'll say an hour and a half practice instead of 2 hours. So really you're getting, even if they are giving you solid 3, you're getting about another hour of practice a week. So I want you guys to balance that out. You can find this value sheet. It is under our document center on our website where I showed you. Okay, some questions inquirer minds want to know, and then I'm almost done with you guys. Does a weight room matter if only the national teams get to use it? When you go into these clubs, make sure that with all the things you've seen that you're impressed with, make sure that you have access to it and that it doesn't cost extra because you're likely paying a pretty penny already. It's a good question to ask. I know that a lot of the clubs and national teams get that, and they get the athletic training and the physical training 3rd time a week, but all the American and regional teams don't. So although it's there and it's impressing you, you may not even be able to use it. I want to ask you as a player, which is better, and a parent, which is better for the player? Practice 4 hours a week with a superior coach or 5.5 hour week with an inferior coach. I'm not trying to say by any means that no other club has good coaches but us. But I know that I have the best coaches. I know that they're all top level coaches, at least equal to everybody else in the OBR. I also know that not every coach can be at that level. And if you have a lot of teams, the chances of you having the level of coach we have at all levels is nearly impossible. So when you decide, hey, I'm going to go there because I get an extra hour, or a club director tells you, hey, you get a whole extra day of practice here. Would you rather practice with one of my experienced coaches for 4 solid hours with a great practice plan, and he is developing you like crazy, and then you're playing in more tournaments, or go to a coach who's in their 1st year, 2nd year, but you get an extra 2 hours with them? That's something you should answer, not me. I know what I would think if it was my daughter. Is an independent facility really better? Well, yeah, because it's bigger. They can do more things. They get to make the decisions in their facilities. They don't have any downtime. You know, if there's a snow day, it doesn't happen often, but if there's a snow day, we may lose a day of practice because most of our facilities are schools, although some aren't, so we can move them in and we move things around. But the other side of that is we always have top equipment, safety. The schools have everything, you know, they follow the letter of the law. The safety involved in that when you're coming in, when your kids are driving into the parking lot, there's security there. There's a defibrillator on the wall. The amount of safety and quality that's in these facilities is second to none. I'm not saying that it makes us better than a big facility, because I think there's a lot of advantages to a big facility, but it does, there's no slight because we practice in schools. And when you get a practice school, you're pretty much there all year. If you had one move, it might be, through February you're in this school, and then from February to May you're in this school. You don't jump around. We don't move schedules around. Everybody has a set schedule. Would you rather play on our number 2 team? Remember what I said. Or somebody else's number 1 team if our number 2 team finishes above that number 1 team? Just something to think about. I think I spent enough time on it. Is transparency important to you? Honest, put it in writing, follow the rules, follow the guidelines. Like I said to you before, it's a business. If they're not willing to do it when they want you to come there, what's it going to be like? What's communication going to be like once they have your money and you've already signed and can't get out of it? Because that's the situation. I don't care if you're unhappy with what they do after. You can't get out of it. You're stuck if you want to play volleyball. Is a detailed club manual, important expectation rules that are clearly spelled out. You can see our manual online. It is about 16 pages. There's no playing around with this. We've had it in place since the very beginning. We don't play around. Everybody knows the expectations. Typically, with COVID, I hope to be able to do that again this year, but we have a huge meeting with everybody in the club in an auditorium. We'll talk to you about this stuff for about an hour. I am an over communicator. I do talk too much. You're probably getting that out of this video right now, but you'll never be left in the dark with me. Happy coaches equal happy families. There's a reason why we have such a great staff. There's a reason why we go through drama-free years. There's a reason why I can go years on end without ever having to sit in a parents' meeting with an unhappy parent, because I have coaches experienced enough to handle that. I have a philosophy that kind of eliminates drama. I have a club manual that doesn't allow for drama. We're here to learn, be in a family atmosphere, be positive, and develop volleyball players. Should a coach be able to structure their own team and practices? Ours do. You'll have to ask other clubs. Some clubs believe in a philosophy that if you teach them at 13 your system, as they move up, they'll always know that system, or if you have to plug them into another team. I'm not of that philosophy at all, because there's so many different philosophies in volleyball, and you need to learn them all. I'm even for moving to another coach now and then. Why not get another coach's perspective? He'll teach you something that you weren't being taught before. Everybody learning the same thing, I don't believe in that. I believe that a team has needs. So I'm not going to write a practice plan for every team to follow when I know that some teams need work on passing, some teams need work on hitting, some teams need work on defensive schemes or offensive schemes. I don't want them, and I don't need them to. They're experienced coaches. They'll write their own practice plan, and it will be awesome, but it'll make every team better. Nobody has to follow my philosophy. I just don't have that ego. No, they have to follow my philosophy. They don't have to follow my playing coaching style. Should a coach be able to pick their own players? Absolutely. My coaches pick their own players. Should a coach ever pay for a hotel or parking? Sounds silly to you? We pay for them all. We pay for their parking when they go out of town, and we pay for them, the head coaches, to have their own room. We don't want to put coaches in a situation where we're not paying for their rooms. So they all rent one room, and they end up partying in there all night, and they're packed in there, and they don't get a good night's sleep. We pay for their rooms. There's no coaches here. Even though they probably have a higher salary than they do in other clubs, they do not pay for a hotel room here. No way. Should a first-time coach ever be head coach of a high-level JO team before they've been an assistant? I will not put a head coach in charge if they haven't been a head coach somewhere else. It's either got to be JO or high school, but they have had to run their own team. It's really important. It's what keeps me out of the drama, what keeps our parents happy when a coach knows what it's like to be a head coach. It's just our policy. Now, we bring back a whole lot of players, and man, do we enjoy it. When I get a player that comes back and wants to become a coach, they assist for 2 years. Then the third year, they're eligible if there's an open spot to be chosen to be a head coach, and often they do. I've had some great ones. Most recently, I can name Mallory Adams. Played for me personally, played for John personally, did a great job, was a Buckeyefire alum, was here for a long time. Great kid. She went to Malone on scholarship. She broke GLIAC records. Her, and for that matter, Kat Miller, who's an assistant here, and was her assistant last year. Just awesome stories, right? She becomes head coach here last year and then gets the head varsity coach at Wadsworth this year. We're all about not only developing players, but developing coaches. But it would not throw Mallory into a head coaching job if she's never coached before. She had the coaching experience. And that's why we went there and we started and worked with her. Plus, she's coached her. She has our philosophy. That's important too. Should a coach agree to a detailed coach's manual with rules, conditions, and terms? Our coaches do. We have the same manual that you'll see for the players and families. There's even a more strict manual for our coaches. They agree to it and they sign it. Our coaches go under contract the same way you do as a player. So when we sign our coaches to a contract, they agree to not only all the OVR roles, our own roles in the club manual, and then they cannot coach anywhere else until July 31st, just like you. That's why I'm able to promise you a coach for a team before you ever get here. Important to me. Should a coach be under contract? We just covered that. Should a coach make their own tournament schedule? Of course. I'm not going to make a tournament schedule, hand it to them and say, there's your schedule. You better make it to everything. And find out they had a wedding or a conflict, or that makes for an unhappy coach. We work with the coaches on how to schedule tournaments, the strategy in scheduling tournaments. We schedule the big ones for them, like Indianapolis or Kentucky or Philadelphia. But ultimately, the rest of the schedule is theirs, and they get to make it. And they request those tournaments, and then we write the checks and we pay for them. I think it's huge that a coach makes their own schedule. Should a coach be positively motivated to make you better? You saw how we build teams. How does one team get to pick the first player over another team? They ranked higher. They built a team. They kept their team together. The coach is rewarded then by getting those final pieces before the other team gets a piece. The other team continues to work hard until they're both up there. It works. It works. As I said, nothing's 100%. But overall, you saw the philosophy and the history. It does work. Opinions on national. I'll take you through this real quick because I think I've already kind of made it clear how I feel about national. There's a place for it. You need to weigh the expense. What's your true goal? I mean, if you're 6'2" and you want to play D1 volleyball, you probably need to go to a big club's national program. I agree with that if you can make their number one team. But weigh that expense. If your goal is D2, D3, we'll put you in college. It's not a big deal. We've done small D1s too. It's not like your exposure is going to be less. We can get you to college. So you don't have to buy into that and pay all that money. Instead, come to us and use that money to pay for the college. What's left of it, if you don't have a full scholarship. The fee can be more than double our normal price. Travel expenses. Every time you're out of town, I don't have to tell your parents you've been doing this, right? They're going to spend $400 or $500. They're going to buy you t-shirts, sweatshirts. They're going to buy you meals. They have to pay for their hotel. It's expensive. And if you're doing that just so because you feel good you're being called national and you're not getting playing time on that team, that's silly. Go to a smaller club, play American, develop more, get more touches on the ball, and play more. And I'm telling you, I've got national level coaches, even if we're playing American. That's what's important. Be honest with yourself. Decide where you want to be in volleyball. At 15, you might say, oh, I absolutely want to play. By 18, if you're doing national since you're 13 years old, you could be burned out. Be a great player who never wants to play in college. A lot of times they quit at 17. They just don't even want to play their last year. And I can give you a long list of 18-year-old players who would tell you how meaningful their last year with Buckeyefire was at 18. Fun, together, unified. One of the best memories of their life. Because they were coming out of this whole national burnout, played it all my life, aggressive type clubs. And what ends up happening to these kids is they're ready to have fun. And if they didn't do it, their memory would be that. We give them that last memory that says, oh my God, volleyball can be fun. And they'll all continue to play. They're playing club ball or they're playing in college and they're playing as adults after college. That's what means a lot to me. Be happy playing limited playing time. Yeah, it happens all the time. They'll take our best American player, tell them they'll be on the national 2 team. They find out there's 15 kids on the roster. They're sitting there and they're playing, never getting into a game. I saw one of my players that I just absolutely loved, this kid a few years ago. She had jumped to a national team. We saw her at the MEQ and I'm going, you're not playing. She goes, oh no, they let me go in and serve and then I come right back out. This was my key setter. This is a kid setting going all the way around. A kid that I absolutely positively love. She regretted that move so badly. So be careful when you make it. National, in my mind, has been a little bit watered down. And I'm just going to give you this example. You know, the numbers will tell you 15 national in 2001, there's 53 teams. The same in 2011, because I can't go back in the archives farther than that. There was only 27 teams. National teams have doubled and tripled, and it's not because there's more kids playing volleyball. National makes more money. So when they had one national team, now these clubs have two, some have three. Where are they getting those kids? They're getting them out of the American level. And then they're putting more regional kids into the American level. So to me, it's hurting every division. National needs to be those top-notch D1 type players playing each other. That's what it was meant for. I don't think it was meant for that. We also have a lot of American teams that go into the bid-in. They go and they play in the national bid-in tournament down in Columbus, and they finish really well. In fact, we've had one finish and qualify down there before, and they ended up turning it down. But the bottom line is that you know, these good American teams can beat about half of these national teams. The other half, they're phenomenal. They're who they should be, and they will beat the crap out of teams. But it is what it is. I just don't like the way that it's all set up lately. So I'm not going to push national on anybody. That said, our explosive teams want to play national. We'll enter them national. Whatever we need to do. Again, remember, it's a business. I'm telling you, we put kids in college, and we do that by developing from 13, making sure they love the sport, making sure they still love it at 17, making sure they're not burned out at 18, and then we want them to go to college. I didn't even put the last 2 years. They're on the website, but I didn't put it in the presentation because I couldn't cut and paste correctly. These are all kids that we put in college programs. A lot of D2s, many D3s, and some small D1s. So it's not like a small club can't help you get to college. We absolutely can. After this last year in 2019, the next class I think had 7 or 8 go on scholarship, and last year easily had 6 to 8 that are playing right now in college on scholarship, D2 at least. No D1s last year, but you know, it happens. It's just because we're small. If the bigger clubs are telling you have to come here because they can't place you in college, BS. I'm placing all these kids you see here from 12 teams, probably 1 or 2 18s teams, and I'm placing them. So how can you say that you have 60 teams and 7 17-year-old teams or 8 17-year-old teams to pick from, and we're placing the same amount of kids in college? I take it personally when clubs say, hey, you have to come to us because the smaller club cannot place you in college. Okay, so if I sound passionate, that's why. I care about my kids. They're not slighted. And if you come here, you'll figure out that you'll never be slighted here. So all that, I hope that you understand that there's passion in my voice. There's passion in what I'm saying to you. I want to communicate these things to you. But most of all, I want you to know what Buckeyefire is about, how much we do care, and what we're willing to do for you, and how talented this coaching staff really is. I want you to consider trying out here. Don't make us the conflict you miss. There are opportunities here. And if you're the player that we want, which is a positive, solid, great attitude player with good skills, you don't have to be 7 feet to play here. When you try out here, you'll feel it right away. You know what court shifting is. You've all gone through it. There's no court shifting here. We don't start the tall kids on court 1 and move you down as the tryout goes on. How many complaints I've heard about clubs starting the tryout, their poor kid, 15, 20 minutes into the tryout is on court 7 and nobody's watching them because everybody's watching court 1, 2, and 3. Just basically telling the kid already you didn't make it. We don't go for any of that. Our tryout's like a practice. You're going to be instructed by great coaches. We're going to ask you to do some things. We're going to scrimmage a little at the end. We'll shift kids around to see how they play together, but there is no court shifting where we have a court 1 to court 9. It's just another example of what I'm trying to tell you. The tryouts are very positive. Coaches never write down anything negative. I tell kids all the time, if you shank the pass and you see a coach writing, we're not allowed to write down negative stuff. That's in our philosophy and in our rules. So what we write down, what they're writing down has to be, hey, she came back from that great, had a great attitude when she made a mistake, or she hustled. It's never negative. We don't say, oh, that kid can't pass. Why would anybody even write that down? So, but you feel these things. If you've gone through our tryouts, you feel that. Now, I know I can't put everybody in this club, but I do want to see everybody at tryouts. And I promise it'll be a great experience you won't regret. Whether you make it or don't make it, whether you accept our offer or you decline our offer, I'll have the same respect for you. I'll give you the same high five when you're with another club and I'm playing against you. This is about developing kids and loving the game. And that's how I feel. So beyond this, I'm going to just send you to this last slide. You can end the video now if you'd like. If you have questions, email me at thatstaffbfvb@gmail.com and I will answer, usually pretty quickly, unless you catch me on Sunday. I really like my football on Sundays. And I'm happy to discuss just about anything with any of you. The next slides, they're just emails that I collected over the years to prove that what I'm telling you isn't, I'm not just saying it, people really do truly feel it. You can end the video now, or you can look through the emails, which I'm going to scroll through quickly. So if you want to read the whole things, you probably have to pause the video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find what I'm saying positive, not negative. And I really hope that you'll consider Buckeyefire as one of your top choices to try out for this year. And if you do, I can't wait to meet you at tryouts. You guys all have a great day.